Good day and welcome back to the podcast Catch It, A New Perception. My name is Katuk. Please share this podcast with anyone that you believe it would be pertinent for. Anyone that could benefit from it. Today, as autumn is upon us, and we are in the middle of a new season, things always seem to continue to change, and we see them outside, out in the world. We see them outside of ourselves. We see things change inside of ourselves. How conscious of it are we? How much of that change is good? How much of that change do we want? Thinking about how we move forward in life and the gifts that are given to us. How is it that other people perceive us? Sometimes it's hard telling how someone else sees us. Sometimes they'll share it. I've had people share things with me and tell me a little bit of what they think of me, and today it seems to be in a good way. People say it with a good heart. They say it with good intentions. And they say nice things often. Of course, we've all heard those derogatory things, and I have spoke to this a little bit in the past episodes of this podcast, and how when we were young and someone said something derogatory, that seemed to be what rang in my head. I think it's true for some other people that I've spoken with. We're young kids and we're on the playground at school at recess, and someone says something, you're ugly, you're fat, you're skinny, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're a know-it-all. They could say anything and it seems derogatory the way they're saying it, because it appears to be meant that way. Now today, if someone said you're skinny, I might take it as a compliment, because I've been heavier than what I am today, and I appreciate not weighing what I once did. So how we hear it may be different, and how people say it may be different. How they mean it, the intent behind it. Sometimes we know what that is, sometimes we don't. My point to this is, when I was a kid and I heard it on the playground and it was derogatory, those derogatory things rang in my head. You're dumb, you're ugly, whatever it is, that's what rang in my head. For some reason, the mantra didn't ring the same. It didn't resonate with me. I didn't ruminate about it when someone said you're smart or you're good looking. Those things I don't remember as much. So when we do this to ourselves, this is something we do to ourselves. This is something we need to take credit for or take accountability to, is the fact that when we hear something negative, and I'm not saying everyone does this, and I'm not saying that everyone has done what I've done when it comes to this. I just think often, from speaking to enough people, I've seen this, where somebody will say something and it's derogatory, and that is what we ruminate about. So, how do we change this? How do we change something we've ruminated over for decades, years? Someone said something derogatory and we ran with it, and that is just what we hear again and again and again. There comes a time where we need to counter that. And if you haven't begun to do that, or you don't do that on a regular basis, it's time to start. To hear it differently. To take the positive and turn it into a mantra. Ruminate about the positive. When someone said, you're nice looking, you're beautiful. You're kind, you're generous. That was very loving, thank you. Can you create a mantra out of those words? to find out something about yourself that is true rather than something that's not true that was negative. What brings this conversation about today has to do with someone recently saying something about me in front of me. And I repeated it to a group of people, a similar group of people, maybe even a lot of them would have been the same people a week or two later. And when I started saying it, they saw it as really derogatory. And when it was said originally, it was said quickly and very concise and to the point, and it didn't feel derogatory, even though the way that someone used a word to describe me, I would think is always derogatory prior to this. So someone described me. This is to a group of people in front of me. He said, this guy is a parasite that spreads hope. And what he gets out of it is joy. He's not wrong about the fact that I do try to spread hope and I do get joy out of it. It's easy to get caught up in the word parasite, and if I actually looked up the definition of it, I didn't. And that definition could be different today than it was a couple of decades ago because terminology changes with different generations. And although it would have a negative connotation the majority of my life, if I looked at the true definition of the word parasite, it may not actually be just a poison or just something annoying or something. It might not be that. It could be the fact that a parasite is just something that spreads. And I could see the definition of it differently, that it's not a negative thing. He's a parasite that spreads hope. And what he gets out of it is joy. This podcast is about spreading hope to no end. The essence of the entire thing. My perception is a little different. I didn't have a mission statement when I started, so I didn't have a defined idea of what this is about in that sense. And every episode, every word spoken on this podcast, up to this point, and I hope in the future also, it is about spreading hope. Hope that one can think different. Hope that one can live different. Hope that one can feel different. It is about hope. And how we spread it is by sharing it with others. Now I get it. Some people don't want to hear this. Some people don't want to take the time to listen to something that could change them because they become comfortable where they're at. And that comfortable may not be healthy, it may not be good, it might not be everything that they need. It's comfortable, and that's what they want. So I think that a big part of what we're doing here is trying to spread hope, find a way for people to feel that. And then what I desire to happen is that you take that and you spread hope. What if I could change the world and I only have 12 listeners on here? And those 12 people all reach out to 12 people. And those 12 people all reach out to 12 people. It doesn't take long. It doesn't have to be 7 generations away from me for that to really begin to spread hope. Those numbers would get really big really quick if everyone that listened to this podcast did everything they could to spread hope for someone else that they could feel different. Some people might call it service work. Some people might call it volunteering. Someone might call it a conversation, a text, an email. There's many different ways you can reach out and spread hope. Are you willing to? What will you get out of it if you share hope with someone else? What will you receive? Will you benefit more than they will? When you share hope, when you spread hope with someone else, what will you get out of it? You can't answer that question until you've done it, I believe. I don't think you know what you will get out of it in the future. You can maybe share on what you've gotten out of it in the past. Chances are, if you spread hope with different people will react in different ways to it. You will receive different things from them. Sometimes you'll receive hope back. Sometimes you'll receive joy. Sometimes you will receive the desire to spread more hope. Many ways to see this. Many ways to do this. Sometimes I speak of my hope. I use that terminology. How often do you use it? How often do you want to? And even if you don't use the terminology, how often can you spread hope without using the terminology? Maybe it's time to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Let them know how they impacted your life. Let them know that you think about them. Let them know that those memories are very fond, and you look forward to seeing them again. You look forward to being with them again. You look forward to sharing a meal, having a cup of coffee, and then take the action to make it happen. None of this works without taking the action to do something different. We can't just sit and think about it and believe that it will work. Most of us are not that strong or that in depth spiritually to be able to make that happen. It has to be an action. It might be showing up. It might be giving someone a ride. It could look many different ways. It might be about generosity. And that generosity may or may not be financial. Who knows what generosity is? What one person has to give that is generous is different than what another person has to give. What is it that you have to give when it comes to hope? Do you even want to gift hope to another human being? If you do, keep listening to the next episodes coming up. Looking forward to next time. Live in harmony with and use the bounty of the land to bring kindness to the world. Dok Shao.